I am speaking to this House on a very difficult day for the people of Nairobi. Mr. Speaker, as we speak right now, many of our people are marooned in their homes. I have seen videos and photos of people on rooftops. Some homes have been swept away, roads have been swept away. Mr. Speaker, as we speak right now, footbridges in places like Kamkunji and those connecting Kamkunji to Makadara and Embakasi West, all of them have been swept away, Mr. Speaker, because of the rains that are going on. Mr. Speaker, we have a humanitarian crisis that is unfolding in Mathare Valley and especially in Hospital Ward and Utalii wards. And at this particular point in time, Mr. Speaker, we want to acknowledge that the county government of Nairobi, for all its efforts, is overwhelmed, and we would want to be asking and urging the national government and all the national emergency services to be mobilized in order to save lives in many areas of the city. Mr. Speaker, there is a connection between what is happening now and the motion that is before this House on pending bills. One of the things that breaks my heart, Mr. Speaker, that every time we discuss problems in counties, Nairobi is always at the top of that list in terms of being the worst. Mr. Speaker, you will remember that just a few weeks ago, we were discussing the question of pending remittances to pension funds, including LAP Fund and LAP Trust. And 3/4 of the money, I think it was about 48 out of the 60+ billion shillings that was owed to the pension funds. Nairobi had the bulk of those unremitted funds. Mr. Speaker, just recently, there was a report on the number of teenage pregnancies across the country, and it didn't surprise me that, again, we were number one on that list. So anytime there is a problem across the country, any ranking, we are always at the top of the worst possible list, Mr. Speaker. And it is not another surprise that when we're discussing pending bills, out of the 160 billion that is owed by all the 47 counties, Nairobi has 107 billion out of that. Mr. Speaker, therefore, this motion, I want to thank the Senator for Narok, because this is a motion that is meant to come and save the people of Nairobi. We need to isolate those cases where we believe work was genuinely done, people are genuinely required to be paid, and those payments to be made. Mr. Speaker, one of the conversations that has been going on with the current flooding in the country and in Nairobi in particular is the question of garbage, Mr. Speaker. We have a big problem where garbage has become a very serious menace, Mr. Speaker, and it is contributing to the situation that we are seeing with flooding, because most of this garbage that remains uncollected in many areas ends up in our drainages, and then you see people's homes flooding. I will give you the example, Mr. Speaker. We had a collection center that was opened at Umoja Inako. Mr. Speaker, that garbage was not meant to stay there at Inako. It was supposed to be collected from Inako and taken to Dandora dumping site. Since September of last year, because the contractors have abandoned their work for non-payment, Mr. Speaker, the garbage at Inako in Umoja has now reached the power lines. That is how high up it has been stacked. We have illegal dumping sites at places like Likoni Road, Mr. Speaker. And if you speak to the business people who operate in that area behind Kartasi Brands, there is a place on Enterprise Road where an illegal dumping site was opened there. Mr. Speaker, all of those businesses from Enterprise Road coming all the way up to Road C, to Road B, all of those places right now as we speak are flooded. People are counting very serious losses because of non-collection of garbage and dumping of soil on the riverbed in that particular area of the Ngong River. Mr. Speaker, I had a conversation one time. One young contractor came to my office. He had been contracted to collect garbage. That gentleman, after receiving that contract, went to suppliers of machinery, the backhoe loaders and the trucks, and got a loan to finance that particular project, thinking that he would be making some money and be able to pay for those equipment. Mr. Speaker, by the time this guy is seeing payment, first of all, he had to abandon work. His machines were repossessed by the financiers. They were auctioned, and of course they were auctioned at a lesser value than he bought them. And the difference between the value that he took and what they fetched in the market at the auction was he was being asked to pay that amount. And yet, Mr. Speaker, when you go to the county governments for this payment, we have this phenomenon where if you don't know somebody to push for you payments through the county government, nothing is going to be done. Mr. Speaker, when you go to have that conversation, this young man was in tears. You go to have a conversation and you've had allegations of people saying you cannot be paid a pending bill in these county governments if you do not agree to part with 50% of the payment. These are not stories, Mr. Speaker. This is the life of many of the contractors that are in our country, and in our county in particular, Mr. Speaker. So the motion that has been brought by the Senator for Narok, I actually believe is a timely motion. Mr. Speaker, therefore, I want to agree with the proposal here that county governments must prioritize payment of pending bills as a first charge on the county revenue fund. But what we don't understand is why is this not being done even as it is, because that is the law. The law is that we pay our debts first before we do anything else. Why is the control of budget allowing county governments to receive money, to continually receive money, when we know it is not going to the payment of these pending bills as a first charge on the county revenue fund as provided for in the law? Mr. Speaker, I want to make another proposal here. And this is something that I'm sure Senator Ledama agrees with. There is actually no point for any county government to begin construction or new projects when we have stalled projects that have not been completed. Mr. Speaker, if you go to Joseph Kang'ethe grounds in Woodley, there is a social hall that was begun by Governor Kidero in 2013. Up to today, between 2013 and now, Mr. Speaker, even though we have had subsequent county governments, no county government has seen it fit to allocate any resources for the completion of that social hall at Joseph Kang'ethe Woodley grounds. So why would a governor, upon election, Mr. Speaker, not prioritize completion of projects, and then you come up with new projects that are going to, again, get us into this rut that we are in? So, for instance, I have advised my county governor that, yes, he had this plan to subdivide Nairobi into 4 boroughs so that there can be better management of the city. But you don't need to build new borough offices. That is the one thing that I have told him, and I'm sure he understands, that in fact, when we have ward offices for the counties, there is no need for us to build any new offices for the county government, yet we have stalled projects in the health sector and other critical sectors, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there is a meeting that had been called by the Office of the Deputy President for today to discuss this thing of the Nairobi rivers. Of course, for me, because I believe in the relationship between the national government and the county governments being kosher, I thought that it was a misplaced forum for us to discuss matters that are completely devolved. Mr. Speaker, we have thoughts on how we can improve Nairobi. Those of you who have traveled across the world, you see in places like Europe, their rivers are paved at the